Money, a simple word, yet one that has the power to unravel even the most stable relationships. We speak of it, think of it, and measure our worth by it. But here's a truth that most people fail to grasp. Your financial standing is not just a matter of numbers. It is a deeply personal reflection of your values, your fears, and your desires. And when you pry into another's financial life, you're not merely asking about their bank balance. You are probing into the heart of their identity. You may think you're just being curious, perhaps even offering advice. But have you ever considered the possibility that by inquiring into someone else's money, you are indirectly casting judgment? Whether it's their success or their failure, you are marking them with the invisible stamp of comparison. What is it that you seek from them? Validation, connection, or in truth, is it the subtle pleasure of feeling superior or secure in your own position? The ancient Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, understood that external things, wealth included, hold no real power over your inner peace. Wealth is a fleeting illusion. The pursuit of it can fill your days with anxiety and your nights with longing. When you ask about another's finances, you may be seeking answers to questions you should not even be asking. How much is enough? And who decides? Nietzsche would tell you that the drive to compare, to know, is a manifestation of weakness. It reflects a failure to live life on your own terms, to confront your own struggles without the need to measure them against someone else's. You want to know about their debts, their fortunes, their losses, because you have not yet confronted your own fears. You have not yet accepted that money is not a measure of your worth. Your worth lies elsewhere, in your actions, your decisions, your integrity. Only the weak seek validation through comparisons. If you wish to build relationships founded on trust, respect, and authenticity, then treat money as the delicate subject it is. Don't ask about it unless it is offered. Don't pry into what does not concern you. Let others keep their struggles, their triumphs, and their failures private unless they choose to share them. This simple act of respect can transform how you relate to the world and to the people you engage with. By refraining from this invasive curiosity, you release both yourself and others from the burden of comparison. You allow the space for real connection to flourish, not based on superficial measures like money, but on something far more enduring. And in doing so, you might just discover a deeper understanding of your own life, your own path, and your own value, free from the confines of numbers and judgments. As you move forward, remember, the wealth of a person is not in their bank account, but in the richness of their character and the depth of their soul. Keep this in mind and watch how your interactions, your relationships, and your own peace transform. Politics. The word alone stirs up the air, thick with tension, ready to snap like a taut wire. It is a battlefield where minds clash and egos are tested. To speak of politics is to risk stirring a storm in calm waters, to step into a realm where every word is a weapon and every silence a betrayal. You may believe that your beliefs are absolute, unshakable, the truth. But the truth is an elusive creature, and what one man calls truth, another calls deception. And in this war of words, the stakes are far higher than you realize. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. His wisdom was rooted in the understanding that the world does not always bend to our will. Our thoughts, our opinions are transient, just as the world itself is transient. And yet we engage in political debates as if the world will change because of our arguments. We speak, we argue, we convince ourselves that our righteousness will pierce through the ignorance of others. But in truth, what is gained? What is lost? Nietzsche, the philosopher of will and power, would tell you that politics is the playground of the weak. It is for those who need the validation of their beliefs through the battle of words. You see, those who are truly strong do not seek to convince others. They do not need to dominate conversations or prove their superiority. They live their truth, quietly, resolutely. They understand that the best way to change the world is not through the chaos of argument, but through the subtle power of example. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, silence can become the greatest weapon. To not engage in the political drama is not weakness. It is strength. It is the strength to rise above the noise, to focus on what truly matters. It is the strength to not let your peace be disturbed by the temporary storms of the world. When you speak about politics, you are not only sharing your opinion, you are revealing your inner biases, your fears, your need to belong to a tribe, to feel right. So here is the challenge. Can you resist the lure of political discussion? Can you avoid being drawn into the black and white dichotomy of right versus wrong? The answer lies in your ability to see beyond your own need for validation, to understand that peace is found not in winning arguments, but in cultivating quiet strength, in maintaining an unwavering focus on your own growth and inner peace. The next time politics threatens to invade your conversation, remember this: the words you speak are like seeds. What you plant today will grow tomorrow, and what you plant in the fertile soil of conflict will likely sprout bitterness, resentment, and division. But if you choose to plant seeds of understanding, compassion, and neutrality, you will watch them blossom into something much more powerful than the fleeting victories of a political argument. There is no true victory in winning a political debate. The true victory lies in mastering your own mind, in choosing your words wisely, and in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. There are wounds that run deeper than the skin. They are buried in the shadows of memory, hidden beneath layers of time, yet they are always there waiting to be acknowledged. These are the wounds of childhood, the unseen scars that define who we are, whether we are aware of them or not. You may think you are ready to help someone heal these wounds, but what you do not understand is that some scars are not meant to be touched. To open them is to risk exposing the raw, tender flesh of the past, and some pain is not meant to be revisited, not yet. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the nature of suffering, reminding us that we are not defined by the misfortunes we have endured. And yet, the wounds of childhood shape us in ways that we cannot fully comprehend. They are not merely events, they are the roots of our beliefs, our fears, our identities. And while time may dull their sharpness, the memory of that pain stays with us, often without our conscious awareness. It is only in the silence, in the spaces between thoughts, that we can feel it lingering. Nietzsche, in his brutal clarity, would remind you that the past is nothing more than a shadow, and those who live in it, who constantly seek to relive and re-examine it, are prisoners of their own suffering. But the truth, the powerful truth, is that while the past may inform us, it does not have to control us. Yet, there are those who are so deeply shaped by their childhood traumas that to speak of them is to invite the floodgates of emotion, to open a well that may never close. And here lies the delicate balance. When you attempt to help, to offer a hand to someone who carries these burdens, you may inadvertently reawaken that which they have buried. You may give voice to the hurt they are not yet ready to confront. In psychology, this is understood as the fragility of trauma. Some wounds require years, sometimes lifetimes, to heal. And while you may have the best intentions, pushing someone to relive their childhood, to open up before they are ready, can be more damaging than you realize. Just as a flame can warm the room, it can also burn the house down. The delicate balance of healing is not in the force with which we try to uncover the pain, but in the respect we show for the space that must be allowed for growth and release. If you find yourself in a conversation with someone who may carry the weight of these deep, personal wounds, understand this: you are not there to fix them. You are not there to pull back the veil of their past. Your role is not to force healing, but to offer compassion and patience. True healing comes not through probing or pushing, but through creating an environment where they feel safe enough to face their past on their own terms. Understand that some wounds are not meant to be touched by others. Healing, like the most precious of flowers, takes time. And sometimes the greatest gift you can offer is simply your quiet presence, your willingness to wait in the background, ready to offer support when they are ready to speak. There is wisdom in silence, strength in restraint. Only when you understand the delicate nature of these deep wounds can you truly help, not by forcing open the door to their past, but by providing the space for them to walk through it when they are ready. The body, that fragile temple that carries us through the world, is not something to be discussed lightly. It is not a casual topic of conversation, not a surface to be measured, analyzed, or critiqued. We, as humans, invest so much of ourselves in how we present, how we are seen, that any comment, no matter how well-meaning, can feel like an invasion. What we see on the outside, the weight, the height, the age, these are merely reflections of deeper currents, the undercurrent of identity, of self-worth, of personal struggle and triumph. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that we should not seek the approval of others, for they do not hold the keys to our peace. And yet, in a world that constantly judges us based on what is visible, it is almost impossible to separate the exterior from the interior. The body is not simply a vessel for our mind, it is an extension of our identity. The lines on our face, the shape of our figure, these are not just superficial marks, they are a reflection of our lived experience, of how we have navigated a world that often seems more interested in appearances than essence. Nietzsche would argue that to speak of the body as an object to be criticized or praised is to miss the point entirely. He believed in the strength of individuals who transcended society's gaze, who forged their own path regardless of external judgments. The body, to Nietzsche, is not to be idolized or ridiculed, it is to be used as a tool for the will, a vehicle for achieving greatness. And yet, how often do we forget that? How often do we pass judgment on others based on their appearance, as if it were somehow a measure of their worth? When we comment on someone's physical attributes, we are not simply making an observation. We are, in a sense, dictating their place in the world. We impose our values upon them, often without realizing it. You've gained weight. You look tired. You're looking younger these days. These words, meant to be innocuous, may strike deeper than you can imagine. They touch on insecurities, fears, long-held beliefs about who we are and how we measure up. And even if the words are not meant to harm, they can trigger something deeper within the person, something they may have worked years to bury, to hide, to avoid. The psychology of this is simple but profound. We are constantly seeking validation, whether we admit it or not. And when our appearance is questioned, when it is dissected, we feel as though our very essence is being questioned. Our worth, our value, our place in the world. All of this is tied to how we look in the eyes of others. To speak of someone's appearance is to walk into a space that is intensely personal, a space that holds their vulnerabilities, their doubts, their fears about their own inadequacies. And yet, the cruel paradox lies here. We are all complicit in this game. We allow ourselves to be reduced to our appearance, to believe that we are nothing more than the sum of our external features. To comment on someone's body is to engage in this reductive narrative, to treat them as a thing, not a person. But the truth is that every wrinkle, every scar, every imperfection is a story. It is the story of resilience, of survival, of battles fought and lessons learned. It is the history of who we are, whether we like it or not. In our interactions with others, we must cultivate a reverence for what is unseen. We must learn to appreciate the essence of a person, not just the shell they inhabit. For what we see is fleeting, but what lies beneath, that is the truth, the power. And if you ever find yourself tempted to comment on someone's appearance, pause. Ask yourself, what lies behind that gaze? What story are they carrying that they have not yet told you? It is only through understanding the depth of another person that we can ever truly see them. So the next time you are in the presence of another, be gentle with your words. Respect the sanctity of their appearance as you would their thoughts. For in the quiet, in the unspoken, we discover the truth of who we are. And it is not in the size of someone's waist, the age they appear to be, or the color of their hair. It is in the way they move through the world, the way they carry their own weight, the strength they have developed in silence. This is what makes a person truly remarkable. And this is what we should honor. The past, it is a shadow that we all carry, whether we wish it or not. And for some, it is not a place they're eager to revisit. It's a land of silent scars, quiet betrayals, and moments of raw vulnerability. The history of our relationships, the ones that shaped us, molded us, and sometimes broke us, is deeply personal. To inquire about someone's past relationships is to step into a sacred, sometimes painful realm where memories may linger like unhealed wounds. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." We often believe that understanding another's past can give us control, a sense of knowing, but in truth, it is the act of asking that opens the door to their internal struggle. To speak of old loves, past heartbreaks, the ghosts of what once was, is to invite the person to relive what they may not yet have fully processed. And for many, that process is still ongoing. Nietzsche would argue that we cannot live in the past. He famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." What he means is that the past, with its relationships and its losses, cannot define us unless we allow it to. We must create meaning from our experiences, not cling to them as anchors. But the question remains, how do we move beyond those experiences when others continue to pull us back into them? When we ask about past relationships, we may unintentionally disrupt the fragile equilibrium someone has worked hard to build. They may have long since buried the hurts, let the pain dissolve, and now seek to move forward with a sense of peace. To pry into that past is to force them into a confrontation with something they may not yet be ready to face. It's an intrusion, an unsettling force that disturbs the natural flow of their healing. The psychology behind this is complex, yet clear. We are wired to seek connection and understanding, and sometimes that drive leads us to make assumptions about others' pasts. But this need to know is not rooted in love or care. It is often a desire to compare, to judge, or to protect ourselves from our own insecurities. What do their past relationships say about us? What does their history reveal about our potential future? But in this pursuit of knowledge, we risk losing the ability to be present in the now, to engage with the person in front of us without the lens of their past clouding our judgment. The truth is, the past is not a place to dwell in, nor a place to exploit. It is a part of their story, yes, but it does not define who they are now. It is like a book with chapters that have already been written, and while we may be curious about the plot, the author is not obliged to reveal every detail. To love someone, to truly see them, is to acknowledge the present, to engage with who they are today, not who they once were in the arms of someone else. The art of connection lies in knowing when to ask and when to hold back. It lies in understanding that some things are not ours to know, not ours to pry into. It is in this respect for boundaries, this recognition of the sacred space between two people, that we find the strength of true intimacy. So when you find yourself tempted to delve into their past, remember this: what matters most is the here and now. The past, for all its lessons and pains, is a landscape we can no longer control, nor should we try to. The real beauty of connection lies in what you build together, in what you create in the present moment, not in the shadows of what has already passed. To seek answers about someone's past is to attempt to solve a puzzle that is not meant to be pieced together. It is to step into a world that is not yours to inhabit. And in doing so, you risk losing sight of the person standing before you, the one who, like you, is walking forward with their own burdens, their own strengths, and their own future. Let their past be theirs, and in that, let them find the freedom to move forward, for that is where true growth and true connection lies. Religion. It is more than a belief. It is the very fabric of a person's soul, woven from years of history, culture, personal experience, and often profound inner transformation. To speak of it lightly, to probe it without consideration, is to trespass into sacred territory. It's not simply a question of what someone believes, it's a question of who they are at their deepest core. You may think your own perspective is the right one, that your truth holds the key to all understanding, but this approach only breeds division. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of the human spirit. As Marcus Aurelius teaches, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. When it comes to religion, it is crucial to recognize that no single opinion can capture the depth of a person's belief or experience. What you see on the surface is just a fragment, and the more you attempt to probe or challenge it, the further you push them away from genuine connection. Faith, in its many forms, is a refuge, a space where a person finds meaning, purpose, and a connection to something greater than themselves. To question it too forcefully is akin to pulling apart the very foundation upon which their life is built. Nietzsche, with his characteristic intensity, speaks of the human need for transcendence, for belief in something that provides meaning beyond the material. He understood that religion, in its truest form, is not about rules or rituals. It is about a sacred relationship between the individual and the divine, whatever that may look like. And yet, in our modern age, we often forget the sacredness of that bond, using religion as a tool to compare, to judge, to prove our superiority. The irony, however, is that in seeking to convert or correct others, we miss the very point of religion. It is not a philosophy to be debated. It is an experience to be lived. Psychologically, the need for respect in matters of faith is vital. When you challenge someone's beliefs, you are not just attacking an idea, but the very essence of who they are. Their beliefs shape their worldview, provide a sense of peace in times of turmoil, and offer a path forward when all else seems lost. To dismiss or question those beliefs is to undermine their sense of identity and security. It is a blow to their inner equilibrium, a disturbance that may take far longer to heal than any external wound. But this is not to say that we must remain silent, like passive observers, in the face of differing beliefs. No. What we must do is approach these differences with humility, with a deep respect for the individual's journey. We must recognize that each person's path is unique, shaped by forces beyond their control, and that their faith, no matter how different from ours, holds significance that we may never fully understand. The true test of respect is not to deny their beliefs, but to honor them, even when we disagree. Religion, in its essence, is personal, transformative, and incredibly powerful. It is a mirror reflecting the deepest parts of our psyche, our fears, our hopes, and our struggles. When we speak of faith, we are not merely exchanging words. We are touching something raw, something that has the potential to create either a profound bond or a painful rupture. In a world that constantly seeks to divide, where we are encouraged to pick a side, true wisdom lies in the ability to listen, to empathize, and to hold space for another's beliefs without the need to change them. The delicate nature of religious beliefs demands our utmost consideration. To tread on this ground without care is to risk damaging not only relationships, but also our own spiritual integrity. By respecting the sanctity of another's faith, we engage in something greater than mere conversation. We engage in a shared humanity, where mutual respect is the foundation upon which we build meaningful, lasting connections. And so I urge you, before you challenge or question another's faith, take a step back and remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bees. In matters of religion, what is not good for one is not good for all. And so, let respect reign, let compassion guide your words, let understanding build the bridges where others seek to place walls. In the end, it is not our job to impose our beliefs, but to live by them in such a way that others may come to admire, not by force, but by example. This is the true art of connection. In a world obsessed with titles, income brackets, and social hierarchies, it is easy to lose sight of what truly defines a person. The drive to categorize, to measure someone's worth by their job title or paycheck, is a game that leads only to emptiness. Social status, in its most superficial form, is a fleeting illusion, one that shifts with the seasons of fortune and fades with the passing of time. It can never encapsulate the essence of who someone truly is. Yet we still get caught in its web, measuring each other by external standards that fail to reflect the complexity of the human spirit. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." It is not the size of your paycheck or the title you hold that leaves a lasting impact. It is the depth of your actions, the sincerity of your intentions, and the way you engage with the world. True power lies not in what others see, but in the quiet strength of your character. To constantly seek validation through status is to anchor yourself in the transient, and by doing so, you anchor your sense of self to a shifting, unreliable force. Nietzsche, with his relentless drive toward self-mastery, cautioned against the trap of societal validation. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. When you ground your sense of worth in your passions, in your purpose, and in your deepest desires, you transcend the judgment of the external world. It is the pursuit of your own truth, whatever that may be, that brings fulfillment, not the pursuit of recognition or praise. When you connect with someone on the level of shared interests, passions, and creative pursuits, you open the door to a more profound, genuine connection. But as with all things, there is danger in comparison. The relentless climb up the ladder of social status only fuels feelings of inadequacy, of jealousy, of endless competition. The human soul thrives not when it seeks to outshine others, but when it seeks to understand itself and embrace its unique path. Think of a river flowing in its own direction without concern for the other rivers. It knows its journey and flows with purpose, not with anxiety. When you allow yourself to be defined by your job or income, you place yourself in a battle you will never win, a battle against your own self-worth. The more you look outside for validation, the further you move away from your true self. Psychologically, the damage of this outward focus is immense. Every conversation about salary or status chips away at your peace of mind. It draws you into an invisible war where you are forever measuring your value against others. But when you shift the conversation to passions, interests, and personal pursuits, you open the door to deeper connection where true worth is recognized. Your value lies not in what you do, but in who you are. It lies in your ability to create, to love, to think, to contribute. These are the things that build lasting bonds between people, not the titles they carry or the money they earn. In this world, where status is everything, it is vital to remind yourself and others that your worth is not measured in material terms. Real power comes from knowing your value, independent of the outside world. And as you engage with others, remember this. When you connect with someone based on their passions, their creativity, their humanity, you rise above the transactional nature of social interactions. You move from a place of competition to a place of shared experience. You no longer need to measure yourself against anyone because you are secure in who you are. So, next time you find yourself on the brink of discussing salaries or career positions, pause. Ask yourself, what is the real value of this conversation? Is it a true exchange, or is it a competition? Is it a way to connect on a deeper level, or merely a way to measure worth? The shift comes when you stop focusing on status and start embracing what truly matters: the connections you make, the passions you pursue, and the person you are becoming, not the role you play in society. Let go of the external measurement and embrace the internal truth. This, ultimately, is the path to freedom. Failure, a word that echoes in the deepest corners of our minds, triggering discomfort, fear, and even shame. It's a word we often avoid, yet one that follows us at every step. A shadow too close for comfort. To talk about someone else's failures is to tread on delicate ground, a reminder of their human vulnerability, their broken moments. And while it's easy to distance ourselves from those struggles, we must ask ourselves, what do we gain from rehashing them? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, understood the deep, unavoidable nature of failure. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Failure, from his perspective, was not something to be feared, but a necessary element of growth. Yet even with this understanding, there is wisdom in how we handle such subjects when others are involved. For someone else's failure is not simply a distant event to be analyzed with detached curiosity. It is often a wound still raw, a lesson still being learned. To bring it up, especially casually, is to force them to relive that moment of vulnerability. Nietzsche would argue that failure is part of the human condition. He would say that it is the suffering, the falling and the rising again that makes us who we are. "What does not kill me makes me stronger," he famously wrote. But even Nietzsche, in his relentless pursuit of strength and self-overcoming, would understand the danger in exposing someone to their past wounds unnecessarily. Not everyone is ready to face the shadow of their failure again. Not every person is prepared to see the broken pieces they've yet to repair. Psychologically, failure is one of the most profound emotional experiences we can encounter. When we fail, we don't just lose something external, we risk losing a part of ourselves. Our sense of worth can erode, and the fear of judgment can weigh heavily on our hearts. That's why we must handle the subject with great care. To mention someone's past failures without their consent is to destabilize their fragile confidence, potentially making their recovery process much harder than it needs to be. It is not for us to decide when and how someone is ready to confront their own mistakes. When you bring up failures, whether personal or career-related, you risk reopening an emotional wound that someone may have worked tirelessly to heal. And that, my friend, is an act of unnecessary cruelty. It's easy to look at someone and think of their past mistakes as simply data, just another moment in their life story to analyze, to dissect. But behind that data lies a person whose mistakes are not just pieces of a narrative, but scars etched into their being, each one teaching them something valuable about their journey. Their recovery, their triumphs, their future depend not on the wounds of yesterday, but on the strength they've mustered to move forward. So, when engaging with others, remember this: a person's failure is not for you to use as a tool in your conversation, nor as a point of comparison. It's not a game, and it's certainly not an opportunity for you to feel better about yourself. Rather, it's a sacred part of their personal evolution, one that should be treated with the utmost respect. When you discuss failure, Let it be in the context of growth, resilience, and the power of human will. Let it not be a mockery or a point of discomfort. Speak of failure as an inevitability in life, but do so with empathy and care. You never know how fragile someone's sense of self might be in that moment, and your words, even if well-intended, can either help them heal or leave them in deeper pain. If you want to build a deeper connection with others, if you truly wish to help them grow, recognize that failures are a private battle. They are not trophies to be shown off or discussed for amusement. Instead, honor the journey, and above all, respect the silence of recovery. Sometimes, the greatest support you can give is simply allowing people to move through their failures in peace, without reminding them of how far they've fallen, but helping them see how much higher they can rise. This is the way to true wisdom, the way to truly understand the art of human resilience. There is a delicate, almost sacred space where the deepest wounds of a person lie, and this space is often hidden within the confines of family life. When it comes to divorce or family struggles, the very air thickens with tension and unspoken words. These are the battles fought behind closed doors, in the quiet corners of one's soul, where pride and vulnerability collide in an intricate dance that few can truly comprehend. To enter this realm without invitation is to risk treading on sacred ground, a place where people are often trying to piece together the fragments of their identity in the aftermath of loss or conflict. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urged us to look inward, to focus on what we can control, and to accept the nature of things as they are. He understood that life's difficulties, especially the ones we try to hide, are part of the grand design. To disturb someone in this space, to probe into the dark corners where their heart is still healing, is to disregard this principle of acceptance. By pushing for answers, by seeking to understand the stories of their private pain, you impose your will upon them. And this, more often than not, is not a kindness, it's an intrusion. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, in his fierce and unapologetic exploration of human will and suffering, would likely see the probing of someone's family struggles as an attempt to strip them of their dignity, the dignity that they still cling to despite the emotional storms that rage within. To dive too deeply into such matters is to undermine their strength, to deny them the right to protect their narrative and their reputation. In times of crisis, the human soul is both fragile and strong. It needs space to rebuild, to heal in silence, without the prying eyes of others. To force someone to reveal their wounds is to disrespect the very core of their struggle. Nietzsche spoke of the need for each individual to rise above their suffering, to transcend it. And this is a private journey, one that should not be shared unless the individual has chosen to make it so. Psychologically, we know that family issues, particularly divorce, are loaded with emotions. There's shame, guilt, fear, and anger. Often the person you speak with is not just grappling with the breakup of a relationship, but with their own sense of self-worth, their place in the world, and how they will be seen by others in the aftermath. By pushing them to reveal details they are not yet ready to share, you are potentially reigniting old wounds they are still trying to stitch together. The fear of being judged, of being misunderstood, can be as painful as the event itself. The damage that curiosity can do here is profound. To inquire about someone's family breakdown is not a simple act of seeking understanding. It is a moment that can tip the balance of their fragile sense of control. The reputation they are desperately trying to rebuild may be shattered by a single careless word, a question they weren't prepared to answer. There is something deeply personal in every family struggle, and that personal territory is sacred. By respecting the silence, by holding back your curiosity, you allow them the space to regain their strength and their sense of control. Remember that, just as Marcus Aurelius taught, we cannot know the full story of someone else's life, and perhaps We are not meant to. To enter the realm of their private pain without their consent is to impose an illusion of understanding, when in truth, the complexity of their experience lies beyond our grasp. They have their reasons, their battles, their wounds, which they may choose or may not choose to reveal. But until they do, our role is to respect the sanctity of that silence, to allow them to heal without the weight of our curiosity hanging over them. In the end, it is in the spaces we leave unspoken that we show the most respect. It is in our willingness to refrain from prying, to allow others their privacy, that we demonstrate true understanding. As Nietzsche would have said, the path to wisdom often lies not in knowing more, but in knowing when to stop, when to let things be. Your respect for their boundaries will speak louder than any question you could ask. And that is where true connection begins, not in the demand for answers, but in the silent recognition of their struggle, their journey, and the profound dignity they possess, even in their brokenness. As we wrap up, remember this. The art of respect and understanding lies in knowing when to listen, when to remain silent, and when to simply be there without expectation. Our relationships thrive not on the questions we ask, but on the space we create for others to be themselves. Let this wisdom guide you, and may your connections grow deeper, more meaningful, and more compassionate. Stay mindful, stay respectful, and always honor the unspoken. Wishing you peace and clarity on your journey.